Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee. Hampton's own DJ Envy is not here today, and that's probably a good thing.
Right.
Okay. We have a queen in the building. She has a lot of different titles. First off, Dr. Alfiee Breland Noble, internationally recognized scientist, author, speaker, media contributor, founder of the AKKOMA Project, and chief mental wellness officer of the Mental Wealth Alliance. Dr. Alfiee Breland Noble, what's happening?
It's all good. I'm here with you beautiful people. I am grateful. I am so excited, and like just my spirit is just so filled. Like I have peace today because of what we did yesterday.
The Mental Wealth Expo.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was your vision and your passion, and you never take the flowers, but I'm just going to keep throwing them at you, and maybe one of them will stick on you. The idea to bring a bunch of black folks and other folks who love black folks together to just focus on our healing and our wellness and seeing ourselves and loving ourselves, and it was so beautiful.
Well, I can't execute none of that without you.
Man, come on.
All I do is say, hey, I think we should do this.
And then it happens.
And it
right?
happens. I get out the way, and then okay, this one we doing it? This where it's at? Yeah. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. It was I don't even have the words. It was just I've gotten so many emails, even this morning. I got emails last night. One person even said, "You all saved my life."
Wow.
That was the caption for his, the title for his email, and just went on to talk about, I think his name was Justin, how being in that space and being in that environment and you being there specifically and being such a kind person. I'm big on kindness. I don't like fake. I love, everybody, I think we all have a little bit, we can be fake sometimes, but you're never fake. You're just always who you are. And I think that you showing up in that way just was so healing for so many people. And, people don't know this. I stood there with you. You stayed like an extra hour and 10 minutes. And literally everybody who was in that line, it just makes me a little teary. You stayed and talked to them. People don't do stuff like that, right? And even just you seeing, I have this thing I always say, everybody wants to feel seen, heard, and they want to feel valued. And that's what you did for people yesterday. So I just appreciate you so much for that.
I appreciate you, Queen. Why do you think now is the time that we're having these conversations about black mental health?
I think in part, a big part of it is quarantine and what happened and what we all watched with our brother George Floyd being murdered. I think the precursor to a lot of it was you and a few other people like you strategically coming out and, I'm not saying it was a strategy like you went for that as your goal, but I think the ultimate result of it was being clear about you have your own issues and struggles and concerns around mental health. I try to be very open with people and say anxiety is something that I manage because I need people to see, right? Like you need to see a face. This is what anxiety looks like. And I think that all of those things together were what I call an awful perfect storm of just, I don't know, there was a need. And so now became the time that we talk about it. We were all stuck in the house. We were all dealing with it. We saw a 30% rise in emergency room visits among young people. K through 12, mostly high school kids going to emergency rooms for psychiatric emergencies during quarantine. And so I think it was just too many things together that made all of us feel like we have to talk about this now.
Well, Dr. Alfiee, what contributed to you doing this work that you've been doing for so long also?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. For me, it was, I'll try to make this story short. I can be a little bit long-winded. My childhood, I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm from the same area as Pharrell and Chad, the Neptunes, and Timbaland. Like literally, we all grew up within like a 5-mile radius of each other. And I'm sure they would say Virginia Beach was a weird place to grow up as a black kid, especially if you were a talented black kid in any kind of way. And so I think a lot of it was that. And for me, my journey began in knowing that in my household, my parents really valued me. My mom's deceased. My dad lives with me now. And outside the house, it was a struggle. And so I wanted to always be a resource where young people could come to me and they wouldn't have to struggle in the ways that I struggled outside the house, particularly young people of color and black young people. So that was where my journey started. And I just had a lot of people pour into me. My godmother, Dr. Mona Thornton, is an early childhood development professor. And she poured into me and just told me it was something I could do. And that really was what it was for me. So I am truly living in my purpose now.
I love that you said on the panel yesterday when you was addressing fellow queen, Dr. Rita Walker. And you was like, I got to call you doctor. And you know, this is my friend and sister.
Yes.
Still calling you doctor because so often they don't recognize those titles. Am I
That's right.
saying it right?
That's
okay.
right. Yeah. So coming from academia, I've been saying this for years. I'm a recovering academic. And in academia, there's this, it's so, people don't realize how cutthroat it is. And people are not nice. And so they're just, people can be hateful, especially if you are Black or a person of color and you're smart. Right, and you work hard, and you know what I'm saying. It's like in any industry, people come for you, and so in academia, the way they come for you is they minimize and belittle, right? So they have this thing that they will say in academia, oh well, we're all on a first name basis. But what you notice is when they walk in the room, people say Dr. X and Dr. Y. When you walk in the room, it's Alfiee, Rita, Charlamagne, right? And so it's like no. If you have a title, I have a title. And I think the other thing for me is just to work around all of that. I always want to show respect for my sisters who have busted their behinds to get those degrees. So just like with Sister Corey, right, Minor, it's like she's an attorney. Yeah, we're going to address her as such. So that's what it is for me. I just want sisters to feel, I think the sister's name was Yadi.
Yadi Alba.
Yes, Yadi Alba.
My sacred purpose coach.
Yes, her. She was like, well, I am just reflecting who you are. And so when I say doctor to my sisters, I'm trying to reflect to them, you, like you said, you are a queen, you are beautiful, you are brilliant. You earned that title. And so I'm going to reflect that title to you so that people out there will also know, you don't call her Rita, you don't call her Charlamagne, that's Dr. Jackman, and that's Dr. Walker, and I'm Dr. Alfiee. So.
Now, can you tell us about the AKKOMA Project?
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite things in the world. So the AKKOMA Project used to be my research lab when I was an academic. And then over the years, I decided that the same work that I was doing, which is in reducing mental health disparities for Black youth and youth of color, is really less about how much of the illness like depression, anxiety, PTSD, some of these other OCD, those kinds of things shows up in people. It's really more about who gets care and who doesn't and what's the quality of care that they get. And so the AKKOMA Project is really about reducing the discrepancies between good quality care and bad quality care, who has access to care and who doesn't. And so the AKKOMA Project became a 501c3. I made it a 501c3 about 5 years ago. And we're founded on 3 pillars. We raise consciousness, we empower people, and we change the system. Because at the end of the day, part of our mission is we believe every young person deserves the right to live unapologetically and authentically as exactly who they are. And they can't live like that if they're drowning and struggling under mental illness. So that's who we are, and that's what we do.
Do you find that it's been a lot easier for you as of late with people having more conversations about mental health? Because I feel like a few years ago, this wasn't even really anything that was being discussed, but now it's front and center.
Yeah, it is a lot easier. And I have to say, Charlamagne is honestly a big part of that, particularly for me in my own personal journey. Overall, just in general, it's been a lot more people are open to having the conversation. But I think in my relationship with Char, you know, when you have that huge, like a platform that you all have, that huge, and you share that and like turn the spotlight a little bit on somebody like me, that gives people an opportunity to see what I do, right, as valuable because you have given it a stamp of approval. So absolutely, in multiple ways, it's grown exponentially, the opportunities that I've had to talk about these things. And to me, it always comes back to the same thing, just like with the work I'm doing with him with the Mental Wealth Alliance. It comes back to we are here to serve. I feel like I'm here to serve.
That's
and
right.
so if I can be a conduit to get somebody else some support and some help, if I can reflect and just look at you and let you know that I value you and you're perfect exactly as you are, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And our young people need to hear that because they don't get to hear it enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert. Y'all are the experts. I just got some experiences. I'm still on my healing journey. So when people call me, I'm sending them to y'all. You know that. Whether it's this rapper, this athlete, whoever it is, I'm sending them to the people I know who are the actual experts because y'all are the people I lean on.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, but I think going back to that idea about, you know, why do you call everybody by their title? People don't always see us as experts, right? And so the other thing that you do is validate that we know what we're doing, right? Dr. Walker's book, what is it? The Unapologetic
Guide
to Black Mental Health. That's it.
I keep them on deck.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Shouts out to Dr. Rita.
Absolutely.
So the idea that you would see her as an expert and elevate her. I've heard you talk about her on the show before, and elevate her as an expert. That forces other people to elevate her and look at her as an expert, right? And so it's more than just, I know you lean on us, and you do send people my way, and I do everything I can to help them. I'm always trying. But it's the idea that you allow us to shine in our gifts. And there are too many people who, you know how they say, don't hide your light under a bushel. In some of these environments, they're literally chasing you with the bushel, trying to stick you up under it. And you don't do that. You shine a light on us. And so that's really important, and it's really valuable, because we're expert in Black mental health, but we're also expert in mental health in general. And people need to understand that we know what we're talking about everybody's mental health.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, I saw you talking about nourishing not just your mind, but your body, your soul. So what is the correlation between what you put in your body and your mental health?
Ooh. So I think it all starts with, how do we feel about ourselves, right? And if we think about how we feel about ourselves, that's the base. In addition, like adding on to that, it really is about, what are you taught, right? What do you learn from the people around you? And then that comes back to, how do they feel about themselves? Right. And all of that, I think you like encapsulate all of that in, what resources do you have available to you? So I think if you start from that foundation, you understand why some folks, I think about my own experience, grow up eating maybe a little less healthy than we would have liked. And other folks grow up where it's like at the beginning of the day, everything emanates from how you feed and nourish yourself. So I think about things like food deserts, right? If you come from a community where you don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, you do the best you can. And so I think it's learned behavior, and we have to work on trying to understand, what is that, directly to your question, what is that relationship between what you put in your body and sort of what emanates from your body. But if nobody teaches you the right things to eat, to intake, like the right kinds of vitamins you need to make sure you have in your food, from green leafy vegetables, or fruits, for different kinds of fruits, vitamin B, vitamin D, all of these things that have a relationship to how your brain functions. If you don't learn that, how do you know how to do it? And so ultimately, what's really important is to understand that what you intake, I think, is what emanates from you. But that starts with having a knowledge and understanding of what are the right things to put in your body so that the right things can emanate from you. So it's very interrelated. I think it's a wonderful question, and I don't think it's something that we talk enough about.
I'm sorry I offered you a chocolate this morning.
God, don't worry about it. It's all good. It's never wrong with chocolate. Look, some chocolate got antioxidants in it, so it's all good. It's all good.
One of the pillars of the AKKOMA Project is changing the system.
Yeah.
And that's how I met you. We were on Capitol Hill when Taraji spoke on Capitol Hill. If I'm not mistaken, it was in support of HR 5469.
That's it.
Bonnie Coleman's bill.
Yeah.
And how important is getting legislation passed?
Legislation is everything. So, for example, I'll give you a direct line for how legislation impacts. So the National Institutes of Health, like I've been on this soapbox for 30 years, so thank you for giving me the opening, is funded by taxpayer dollars. Their allocation of money comes from the government. So the government says, this is how much money we're going to give you to operate annually. That money that comes from taxpayer dollars that's allocated to the NIH is supposed to be there to improve the health of all of us, because we all pay taxes. Unfortunately, what happens is, when you look at who leads the science, right, that generates the new ideas that, let's just stick with mental health, the treatment of depression, for example. How do we treat it? We have this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's right.
Why is that the thing? Because that's been studied the most, right? That has the most randomized controlled trials. The problem is, you don't have enough Black people who are leading these studies, or Latinos, or Native Americans, or Asian Americans. And so what you end up with is science that does not reflect the needs of all of us, right? And so the reason legislation is important, we have to shout out Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman of New Jersey, because she listened to me when I said, look, one of the things that's going to help fix these gaps in depression treatment for our young people, and suicidal ideation, and the treatment and suicide prevention, is we got to have money allocated to Black investigators, or at a minimum, they have to have an equitable opportunity to compete for those tax dollars that we all pay, to be able to generate things that are going to work in Black communities. And that's why legislation is important, because she listened to that and then immediately went into, well, what do we need to do? Right? So we sat down and had a conversation with the director of the NIMH, the National Institute of Mental Health. And so that report that we produced, all of that, Taraji coming on the Hill, you coming on the Hill, all of that was a direct result of her listening to me and people like Dr. Michael Lindsay of NYU and some of these other folks, Dr. Ariel Sheftal, Brandon Johnson, who's one of our subject matter experts at AKKOMA, had she not listened to us, I would have never been able to hold court and explain to the NIH director, Joshua Gordon, look, this is the issue. The same thing I explained to you. So that's why legislation is important, because they control and they have the wisdom and the ability, people like our representatives, to move things forward in ways that are going to benefit us all.
What's in the bill? I know it's passed through the House, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it
hasn't gotten through the Senate.
It has not gotten through the Senate. So things in the bill are a drastically increased budget for providing cultural competence training to educators and other people, providers. There's something in there about building an infrastructure so that we can have mental health services in schools. It's increasing the allocation of funding for, like I said, research, but there's also increase in allocation of funding for community-based mental health services. So those are some of the core things. There's like 4 or 5, but those are some of the core things that are in that bill that obviously, who knows why it hasn't passed the Senate. It should have been passed the Senate, gotten through the Senate, because again, it's something that's going to help us all.
It must help too many black people though, if it hasn't gotten through the Senate.
Yeah,
because I would think that'd be a very bipartisan thing, mental health.
Yeah,
and even Vice President Harris, when she was running as president, she announced her mental health campaign. Yeah, I was with her. We did a whole event in, I think, Somerville, South Carolina. Yeah, so it's like, what happened?
Yeah, I'm telling you, Shar, I really do think there's something about, and you will hear people, these little whispers. I've heard it throughout my whole career. How is black people's mental health any different than anybody else's? And my thing is, what do you mean, how is it different? It's like, who else was brought here in chains and endured don't get me on my soapbox, 400 years of slavery?
Break that down. Why is black mental health different?
It is different because we're the ones who were brought here. Now, granted, our Latinx brothers and sisters, they took them to different parts of the shores around Central and South America. So those people look just like us and darker, right, who are Latinx. So I totally respect that and I value that. At the same time, we here in the United States, the ones who were brought here to these shores, we're American citizens, but we still have struggles that other people have yet to acknowledge as our struggles. So the idea that even now is just coming to the point after George Floyd where we can call out racial trauma and racial stress. We couldn't say that 10 years ago. We couldn't say it 5 years ago, because if you said it, people would say, oh, you being racist. No, I'm naming what I see. So those are issues that are unique to us as black people. When we talk about, folks talk about like Ibrahim Kendi and these folks talk about anti-blackness, that is specific to us. Those of us who are of the diaspora, who are black Caribbean, black African, African American, black Latinx, those are issues that are unique to us. So this racism and discrimination, this 400-year history. I heard Ryan Mundy say yesterday at the Expo, we got 400 years. I've heard you say it, 400 years of stuff, trauma that we're trying to heal, right? And we're just getting to the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. So that's what makes it different for black people, right? The intergenerational trauma, the stuff that goes on in our homes, the day-to-day experiences with racism. We talk about the brother from Harvard, his name escapes me, but he talks about how from the, outside all the way in down to our genes and our DNA, racism negatively impacts. His name is Dr. David Williams, negatively impacts us. So of course, black people's mental health is unique, right? Mm-hmm. And we should value that it's unique, and we should want to do things to try to help all of us who identify as black.
What do you think about this discussion about R. Kelly, where they're saying he does not need to be in jail? He needs to I've seen people say that he needs mental help because of things that he's done.
I say a psych ward.
Yeah, I say he needs both, right? He needs to go to prison for what he did. I just think about all those lives that have been destroyed. And he can get psychological help in prison. And I have to say this, one of the single largest providers based on data of mental health for black people is the justice system. Wow. Because they don't get the care until they get in. And remember, these men and women are being traumatized in that system at the same time that we're supposed to be trying to heal them. But that is one of the largest providers, if not the largest.
I was wondering, what is that care like in jail when you commit a crime, but there's also a psychological aspect to it. So talk about that, because I didn't know if everybody gets help or how does that work?
Everybody doesn't get help, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a whole body of work. A lot of forensic psychologists do that kind of work. And so there are a lot of just folks who identify just under the general label of clinical or counseling psychologists do that work. And so in prison and in jail and in the system, not everybody gets it, right? They don't have the availability to give it to everybody. And I think we always have to remember there's a part of it where you are in a situation that you don't want to be in, right? And so the kind of care that you're receiving, you're not forced, but you kind of are being forced. And so it's less than voluntary, which means it's less than ideal. Now, when I think about patients who've been mandated to come to me, I don't practice as much as I used to, but those were the cases where it didn't ever really work very well because they didn't want to be there, right? So I think we have to think about a little bit of that idea that people are forced to be there, which is really going to impact how well they receive the care and how much they take in the care. And then you send them back into extremely stressful situations. So whatever you fix, so to speak, or you help to heal, you're putting them right back in a situation where it's going to get ripped apart again. So that's a little bit of it, but yeah.
Well, what kind of specific examples would you give the families who are dealing with family members who have mental illness? I mean, that's one of the rooms we had at the Mental Wealth Alliance yesterday. Just a breakout room for families who have to deal with people who are dealing with mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar, because it's really tough on them. It
is. And at the Expo, I have to say that I was so pleased that one of the things that, as a part of your vision, that we were able to execute is to give people those different rooms in small settings.
Don't act like that was my vision. That was your idea.
Okay.
I didn't know nothing about no breakout room. I was like, what is a breakout room?
Shouts out to Amanda, right? You just get people in these small environments because sometimes it's a little easier to talk when it's a small environment. So, in one of the rooms, like you said, is helping people think through how do you help a family member. What I always tell people is the same thing. There's stuff that you can do and there's stuff that they have to do. And so what you have to remember is if you have a loved one, you can't make them do anything. The only thing you can do is provide the best and most optimal circumstances to let that person know that you love them, to let them know that you're there for them, to let them know that you want to help them in any way that you can. That's one. And then you want to do everything you can to get your knowledge together around what kind of resources might be available for my loved one, because you don't want to get them ready and then you don't have anywhere to take them. I also say to people, don't push, just offer support. You have to offer that like scaffolding. You just say, I'm going to be your safety net. So when you're ready, I will be here. But I think the worst thing to do is to like push and like harp on it and stay on people. Why won't you go? And what's wrong with you? And, you really dragging the rest of us down. Because when we do that, we alienate and isolate. And let me be clear. Sometimes when a loved one is struggling with a mental illness, the alienation and the isolation might be what they're seeking because they're struggling, they're fatigued, they're confused, and it's not that they don't want help, they don't know how to receive the help. And so if I push you away, I don't have to deal with this, or I don't have to deal with you. So I think it's being patient with ourselves, it's being patient with our loved ones, and it's making sure that we understand the only thing we can do sometimes is just provide that scaffolding and support, and they're going to go when they're ready, and just have those resources available. Have them saved in your phone, have them written down somewhere so that when they're ready to go, you know where to take them. And the one other thing I'll say is this. Sometimes it helps for us to be willing to go with our loved one to care. So I tell parents all the time, or best friends, say to your friend, when you're ready, I will go with you, right? Because people are scared, and so they feel isolated. So we want to give them all the support that they need to make them be successful.
Let's talk a little Mental Wealth Alliance.
Yes.
What is the Mental Wealth Alliance about?
Yes. So the Mental Wealth Alliance is something I'm so proud to be a part of as the Chief Mental Wealth Officer. The Mental Wealth Alliance stands on 3 pillars: train, treat, and teach. And it's all about getting Black people, now this is your vision, Black folks specifically, the help that they need to thrive, right? And so when we talk about train, treat, and teach, we're talking about teaching people skills and tools to take care of themselves, right? We want stuff that's culturally specific, that's relevant for Black people, and that really addresses our needs. When we talk about training, that's building up the next generation of Black mental health providers to provide the care, because we know that in pretty much every profession, whether it's psychology, social work, whatever it is, master's level counselors, less than 5% of those providers are Black. So it's training, it's treating, and it's teaching, and the treating part is making sure that everybody gets the care that they need. So we want to teach people how to take care of themselves. We want to generate and create the next generation of providers, and we want to provide that treatment for people. So one example is we have the Collaborative for Black Mental Wealth, and that collaborative is 7 or 8 different organizations. AKKOMA is proud to be a part, and each of these organizations brings something unique to the treatment of or the engagement around Black mental health. So Shanti Das, Silence the Shame, shouts out to Shanti. She's a beautiful. Oh, what? Yes, she's beautiful. Yes, right. She was there yesterday.
And she spoke on the panel.
Yeah, she was fantastic. We love Shanti. Alchemy Health, Ryan Mundy, which is like an alternative form of care. The InnoPsych, Mental Health Provider Network, they were all there yesterday, represented. The Black Mental Health Alliance, shouts out Andrea Brown and those folks. And so you had lots of folks who, their investment is in Black folks' mental health. And the Mental Wealth Alliance is a foundation that's a hub to provide support and to provide a base for all of these people, all of these organizations to be able to thrive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why is culturally competent therapists so important?
Oh, boy. It can be difficult for people to want to come into care, particularly when we come from marginalized communities. And so when we go into care, we want to go into a situation where a person is trained to take care of us in the ways that we need to be cared for. That's the simplest explanation I can give for cultural competence. And so what we don't want is for a Black person to say, okay, I'm ready to go in, I'm here, let's get to work, and to then have to educate their provider about everything about their culture. That's not useful. That's not helpful. And it doesn't move you forward. And that's not what you're there for. You're there to get help. You're not there to educate. So one example I like to give is a long time ago, this sister, I think it was Blair Imani. We were in a setting and she was just talking about her own experience. And she's very open about having discussions about mental health. And she was describing how she had to educate a provider about something related to her culture. And I just thought, that's not how it's supposed to work. I should never have to go in, or like I can think of experiences I've had where patients will come to me and say, yeah, the last provider I had, I was trying to talk about, I was a dark-skinned child and how difficult that was. And my provider was like, oh, is that a thing? What, Black people have issues around skin color? You know what I'm saying? It was just like, are you serious? So nobody wants to go into therapy for that. So let me just say quickly, when you're talking about cultural competence, you're not talking about knowing every single thing about every single culture. Cultural competence, that's the field I come out of in counseling psychology. It's really about, are you open and do you have the skills, the knowledge, and the awareness to try to be open to different interpretations, different experiences, different worldviews with the patients that you work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Alfiee Breeland Noble, tell them how to support the AKKOMA Project. Tell them how to support the Mental Wealth Alliance.
Yes. So we're going to start with the Mental Wealth Alliance, right? So remember, y'all, train, treat, teach. mentalwealthalliance.org. It is Charlamagne's vision. It's Charlamagne's baby. I want to shout out Ann real quick for all the work that she does, and Hayden and helping me, and Laura. Everybody
salute to Laura. Salute to the Giving Back Fund, too.
Yes, to the Giving Back Fund. Absolutely. So you go to mentalwealthalliance.org. Right there on the first page, you got a big old donate button. You got to donate. You got to follow all the socials for the Mental Wealth Alliance. So go support the Mental Wealth Alliance. And the AKKOMA Project, you can find us at AKKOMAproject.org. We're on all socials. We have a donation going on right now in collaboration with The Daily Show. They've been very supportive of us as well, as have you all. And here at the Breakfast Club, and you, Charlamagne, personally. And just check us out on all socials. And you can follow me, Dr. Alfiee, on all socials. And if you follow me, that'll get you a direct link to both the Mental Wealth Alliance and to the AKKOMA Project.
Well, Dr. Alfiee, thank you. You inspire me so much, and I'm just happy to be of service to you. And I thank God that you exist. I appreciate you so much.
Oh my God, same. And I don't even have the words. Thank you, Shar, and thank you so much for having me, Angela. And y'all are amazing. Bless you.
Absolutely. It's Dr. Alfiee Breeland Noble. It's the Breakfast Club.